Stop, please, stop. I'm gonna die if you don't. Please stop. I'm just kidding. There's a lot of yapping in this video, and there's a lot of yapping on my whole channel. If you don't like that, the original video's in the description. Otherwise, you can stay and enjoy. If you don't, bye. Alrighty. Did shrooms make us human? Sit back, relax, and let's fucking go.
Imagine if the leap from ape to human didn't start with tools or fire, but with a trip. And not a metaphorical one either. According to one of the strangest and most controversial ideas in anthropology, early humans evolved partly because they ate psychedelic mushrooms. It's called the stoned ape theory, and it asks a wild question. What if psilocybin was the secret ingredient behind human consciousness? It's the kind of idea that sounds like a plot to a science fiction novel, but it's a real hypothesis, and it's captured the imagination of psychonauts, mystics, and even curious scientists ever since. But before we dismiss it or believe it, let's see where the evidence actually leads.
So before he fully gets into it, that would be so crazy, wouldn't it? Like, I feel like that would be wild. It makes sense. It's one of those where it's like, I can't say it doesn't make sense. I don't sit here and I smoke. I don't smoke. I don't really do any drugs, like, ever at all. But it's one of those things where, like, I've heard people say that before. Like, there's certain things you experience on drugs that you literally your brain cannot comprehend or experience otherwise. And that's interesting that like our state of consciousness now is our base, which could have been like a high thought for like a monkey. Like, could you imagine like two stoned ass fucking monkeys going like bro, I'm telling you, like, if I take the rock and I like chip it away into like a circle, I can like sit shit on a circle and a stick and I can move it with like less effort. Like, I promise you, that's a real thing. Like, could you imagine that conversation? That'd be fucking hilarious. I mean, I doubt it, but it's a really cool theory. I think it's really interesting already. It's a really cool theory.
In the book Food of the Gods, Terence McKenna laid out one of the most controversial and psychedelic ideas ever proposed about human evolution. That the leap from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens was triggered not by fire, tools, or language, but by psilocybin mushrooms. He believed this shift happened during a critical environmental turning point. Around 2 million years ago, much of Africa was drying out. The lush tropical forests that once supported early hominins began to shrink. Climate shifts led to increasing desertification, pushing our ancestors out of the trees and into open savannas. Fruit became harder to find, and the old forest-based diets were no longer reliable. So our ancestors, like many species under pressure, adapted. They began following herds of grazing animals across the grasslands, scavenging whatever they could. From insects to tubers to whatever they found growing in the dung left behind by large herbivores. And this is where McKenna's theory kicks in. He proposed that, while foraging in this new environment, our ancestors came across psilocybe cubensis, a psychoactive mushroom that naturally grows in cattle dung. Curious and hungry, they ate it. And according to McKenna, that moment, repeated over generations, sparked nothing less than a cognitive revolution.
Yeah, like, that would change you, absolutely.
Psilocybin sharpened visual acuity, specifically edge detection, making early humans better hunters. They could spot predators, track prey, and navigate their surroundings more effectively. McKenna cited research from the 1960s by Roland Fisher and others who showed that psychedelics can heighten certain types of sensory perception. At slightly higher doses, he believed that the mushroom increased sexual arousal and energy.
Of course, yeah.
A reproductive edge. Those who consumed the mushroom were more alert, more active, and more likely to mate, passing on their genes and giving rise to a population with both behavioral and neurological advantages. But the most radical part of McKenna's theory comes with the higher doses. He believed that psilocybin, in these larger amounts, helped dissolve the ego and blur the boundaries between self and other. This,
absolutely. That's what happens when people take it out.
Communal rituals, and even group sexual practices. McKenna imagined early tribes gathered
that also happens.
Mushroom-induced ecstasy, forming deep connections that led to greater genetic mixing and a shared sense of responsibility for the group's offspring. He also believed that these experiences were deeply spiritual.
Glad he blurred all that.
The sense of awe, the disintegration of the self, all of it, he thought, gave rise to the very first religious impulses. Our ancestors weren't just high. They were having what felt like encounters with the divine. Most importantly, McKenna argued that these altered states of consciousness stimulated activity in the brain regions tied to language, imagination, and symbolic thought. He claimed that this was the real origin of art, music, and spoken language. The mushroom wasn't just a drug, it was a neurological key that unlocked higher cognition. To McKenna, psilocybin mushrooms weren't just part of the diet. They were the driving force behind everything we now associate with being human. Culture, religion, storytelling, scientific thinking, it all began in his eyes with the discovery of a psychedelic fungus.
Can you like really believe that? Like that's insane. Like that would be all of like modern humanity is the culmination of a collective of generational high thoughts, which is cool. Like I think that's cool, but it also like it lends to the talk of like what is the amount that you get, you know, like what's the value of these thoughts, and what could we possibly be passing off as just a high thought or something we're thinking about or experiencing in a high state of mind as just, oh, you're high, right? But what if that could be the next level of consciousness? That's really interesting. That's really interesting. And it shows that, you know, because of how prude a lot of people are, you tend to turn away potential experiences that could be beneficial. Okay. Sorry. Excuse me. But yeah, you tend to turn away like things that could be beneficial, maybe not for you directly, but like repeatedly throughout time could be really cool. Like that would be wild. I'm not gonna say like, oh, I'm convinced, but like that would make me want to experience it or try it. Like that's really cool. Like hearing about that and seeing that. I just hate to have a bad trip with how jumpy I am, but I might have another one coming. Hold on. No, we're good. Okay. I really genuinely thought I had another sneeze coming, but we're good.
Religion, storytelling, scientific thinking, it all began in his eyes with the discovery of a psychedelic fungus growing in animal tongue on the African savanna. It's a theory that sounds a little absurd on the surface, but it touches on something primal, something about curiosity, transformation, and the way altered states might shape who we are. McKenna's theory was not accepted by mainstream paleoanthropology, but his writing continued to live in the public consciousness.
We gotta up this B-roll.
In recent years, the theory has gained some popularity with mycologist Paul Stamets. Mycologists study fungi.
This is the Portobello guy.
Mostly self-taught. He's widely recognized for
this is a very explosive area of my life.
Mycology. At a 2017 psychedelic science conference, Stamets stepped up to defend and modernize Terence McKenna's stoned ape theory. In his talk, Psilocybin Mushrooms and the Mycology of Consciousness, Stamets argued that the sudden doubling of the human brain starting 2 million years ago remains a mystery, and that psychedelics might offer a plausible explanation.
Absolutely. Definitely.
McKenna, he imagined that early humans wandering the savannah, stumbling across psilocybin mushrooms growing from dung, eating them, and then experiencing dramatic shifts in perception and cognition. Stamets didn't claim to prove the idea, but he urged listeners to consider it a very, very plausible hypothesis for the rapid evolution of Homo sapiens. The stone ape theory is undeniably fascinating. It's bold, imaginative, and taps into some of the deepest questions about consciousness and our early evolution. But now it's time to take a closer look and see if his ideas stand up to scrutiny. First, a quick clarification. Despite the name, it's not actually a theory in the scientific sense. It's a hypothesis, an intriguing idea based on limited evidence, one that hasn't been rigorously tested or widely accepted.
It'd be hard to test that. I mean, not necessarily. You'd have a lot of people who'd voluntarily do it.
But in science, a theory is something far more substantial.
Something that's been proven through repeated trials, yeah.
Body of evidence. If you take one thing away from this video, it is that the word theory and a hypothesis are not interchangeable. Okay, now let's dive into early evolution, one of my favorite topics. McKenna posited that around 2 million years ago, much of Africa was drying out. The lush tropical forests that once supported early hominins began to shrink. Climate shifts led to increasing desertification, pushing our ancestors out of the trees and into open savannas. He is partially correct in this assessment, as Africa was drying out and the savanna was expanding between 2.8 to 2.5 million years ago.
That's wild.
This idea about our ancestors being pushed onto the savanna is largely out of date. We know that hominins had been living in open environments long before the genus Homo even appeared. The Australopithecines, the predecessors to our genus, appeared over 4 million years ago. They were adapted to open environments as well as sparsely wooded environments. We know for a fact that the earliest species in our genus, such as Homo erectus and Homo habilis, were perfectly adapted to open environments as far as 2 million years ago. So the aridification of Africa didn't force early humans onto the savanna, but rather they were already adapted to it. But this might actually play in McKenna's favor, as in
Bro,
these
what are
open
we doing?
environments, dung-loving psychedelic mushrooms were common. Genetic analysis suggests that Psilocybe cubensis, one of the most well-known magic mushrooms, likely existed across Africa well over 2 million years ago. However, they may have only been available during wetter seasons of the year. McKenna hypothesized that early hominids looking in the dung of large herbivores for grubs would have often come across these mushrooms. This is plausible as other primate species today, such as baboons and chimpanzees, flip over dung
It's like
and
every
dig through
picture
to
of an
find
old
beetle
person
larvae
looking
and
at their
grubs.
phone. You see they're just
Assuming that early humans would have tried these mushrooms from time to time, it is plausible that they recognized
just a
them as
wild
an
look, man.
entertaining
Like
and
they
stimulating
look so
experience.
cool.
After
Like
all,
it's just such a
handful
like
of
a
animals
it's just a
exist to
cool
count
thing to see
recreational
that,
substances.
like what we used to
For
look like.
example, multiple species, including chimps, will eat fermented fruit seemingly to enjoy the alcohol. Some monkeys in the Caribbean have become
I could
full-on
believe that.
alcoholics, and dolphins have been observed inhaling pufferfish toxins and acting inebriated. It is entirely possible that early hominins recognized the effects of mushrooms and enjoyed them, but could these substances have given them an edge? At the heart of the stoned ape hypothesis is the idea that consuming psilocybin mushrooms gave early hominins a survival advantage, perhaps enhancing cognition, perception, or social bonding in ways that accelerated brain evolution.
The one on the right
But
is
from an
really
evolutionary and scientific standpoint, this claim is highly speculative and lacks empirical support. To begin with, let's address McKenna's claims that low doses of psilocybin mushrooms can enhance visual acuity, particularly edge detection, giving early humans an advantage in hunting and survival.
interesting, man. Interesting. Hold on. That's insane. Because like, what are the additional effects that you could find from stuff like this? Like this is why I do think there should be a level of testing that goes into it. Like, and as horrible as it was, the CIA and the FBI, what was it, Project? Oh, what was that? The one where they drugged a bunch of people and they tried to have them do like astral projections and shit and hypnosis through LSD or whatever. Dude, like that's why, like, as horrible as that is, good things came from it, which were the studies, right? Like, and the understanding of what that does to people, and then also it becoming out in the limelight and not happening again, again, blah 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 blah, right? But like, that's where it's like I almost wish we would put enough money towards something like this where we could tell people, hey, we'd pay you this amount to at least give us this many days a week where we could test these things on you if you are willing to do it. Because I absolutely know people that would be willing to do this, right? Because it's like, cool, they would be able to get cool ass, maybe not great sometimes, but most of the time cool ass fucking experiences. They get fed, they'd get taken care of, and they'd have enough money to pay for things outside of the experiments. Maybe not the most money, but some money. And then it furthers like the human genome. Like I think I can definitely see people like wanting to do that. It's just we don't know what the effects are, right? So then there'd be like a thing of you'd have to like give full consent, and then there are corporations that would take that full consent and go way too fucking far with it, and then it would get shut down. Like, unfortunately, like I know that's what's going to go, but I'm so curious to see what else you could get. Like if it improved eyesight over generations like that, that's wild. That's insane. That's fucking insane.
This is one of McKenna's most specific and most misunderstood claims. According to him, sharper eyesight meant better tracking of prey, quicker spotting of predators, and ultimately more food and offspring. He often cited experiments by pharmacologist Roland Fisher to support this idea, claiming that his work showed that psilocybin improved vision in measurable ways. But here's the problem. That study didn't actually test visual acuity. What Fisher's team measured was depth perception and spatial distortion, not the ability to see fine details or sharpen visual edges. McKenna essentially took a study about altered perception and spun it into a story about enhanced vision. Furthermore, Fisher et al. Stated that psilocybin may not be conducive to the survival of an organism. To this day, no peer-reviewed research has shown that psilocybin improves human visual acuity. It alters perception, yes, it intensifies colors, distorts space, and can even make the world feel hyper-detailed, but those effects are subjective, and not the same as objectively seeing better. In fact, most controlled studies show that psychedelics introduce visual distortions, not clarity. Even modern microdosing trials where people take tiny amounts of psychedelics to boost performance have failed to show consistent benefits to perception or cognition. So did psilocybin make our ancestors see like hawks? Probably not. McKenna's claim is imaginative, but it stretches the data beyond what the science supports. The idea of sharper vision under mushrooms may feel true to someone in the moment, but from an evolutionary standpoint, there's just no proof that this would actually work.
Interesting.
Another one of McKenna's claims was that the use of
I still
these
think there's a
mushrooms
chance.
led
I
to
think it's really
increase in
cool.
the size of the human brain. This is a legitimately interesting question. Why did the human brain supposedly double in a period of roughly 2 million years?
And what was the
Let's
point of the
break down
doubling? Like,
increase in the
we've
human brain
definitely
size
determined
based
that it's not the
on
size of the
species. Our
brain,
genus
it's
evolved
the
from
like the wrinkles
Australopithecines,
and everything else.
small-bodied, upright walking hominids with a brain size of around 400 to 550 cubic centimeters. Then, with the emergence of our genus, was Homo habilis dating to 2.4 million years ago with a brain size of 500 to 775 cubic centimeters.
Weird.
Then Homo erectus appeared 2 million years ago, first with a slightly larger brain, and then by around 500,000 years ago, their descendants commonly had brains over 1,000 cubic centimeters. By the time our species appeared 300,000 years ago, hominids all over the world had brains larger than ours today, more than 1,500 cubic centimeters. This includes Neanderthals, our ancestors, and East Asian hominids like Homongi and likely Denisovans. Point being, the human brain size continued to increase around the world in varied environments. It wasn't unique to our species or to the savanna. Hominids in Europe to Southeast Asia were involving increasingly larger brains, except Homo floresiensis, but they were getting really small. It is difficult to reconcile this with the
They were
Stone Ape
that
myth.
fucking
The idea that
small?
mushroom use from animal dung on the savannah led
That's
to our larger brains
insane,
and higher
bro.
intelligence doesn't square with our evidence. What about the other populations that
They were smaller than well, what is that fucking thing called?
Their brains were increasing as well. And this trend clearly
Meganora?
goes back millions of years to the origin of our genus.
Whatever the
The
like
evolution of our
prehistoric
brain
Komodo
very
dragon is,
unique,
the
but it wasn't
tetrapod.
necessarily rapid. We were talking about 3 million years. There are plenty of other models that seek to explain why our brains got larger, and many models have hypothesized.
Alright, it's
that
gonna
the
bother me.
advocate-
I gotta look it up now. What was the name of the prehistoric tetrapod that predated the Komodo dragons? Megalania. Oh, I got them. I got them reversed. Meganura is the large insect. Megalania is the giant monitor lizard. I don't know why I thought Megalania was the fucking bug. The bug, dude. Yeah, estimated up to be 23 feet long. Dude, and like they were tiny enough to be like its head. So like you gotta assume its head's probably like the tail's gonna be about 50% of the length. So the head's probably like 4 or 5 inches, and they were only 4 or 5 feet, and they were only about 4 or 5 feet tall max. That's wild, dude. Everything had to look bigger. That sounds so bad. Oh my god, dude. But anyway, back to the video. I'm happy I know it now. It was gonna bother me if I didn't. It's been just long enough that I haven't played Ark, so I don't remember. But whatever.
Cooking and meat consumption led to the surplus calories required to evolve.
We've seen the same stock images like 8 times.
Ideas surround social complexity and tool use. Ancient humans had an incredible amount of skills to master, places to remember, and relationships to keep intact. Such a demanding lifestyle may have led to the growth of the brain. In fact, both Neanderthals and early modern humans had significantly larger brains than we have today. Over the past 20,000 years, we have lost about a tennis ball worth of brain volume. Our modern brains might be more efficient than the brains of the past, making a smaller brain better overall. But the point is, ancient humans had incredibly complex lives and needed bigger brains.
Interesting. I didn't know that we had lost brain size. Like,
But perhaps the biggest
odd.
problem with McKenna's
Brain volume,
hypothesis
rather.
is also the most fundamental. Evolution only works on traits that are heritable. That is, traits passed down through genes.
right,
Eating a
yeah.
mushroom might temporarily shift your perception, boost your mood, or even make you more socially outgoing, but it doesn't rewrite your DNA. Those effects vanish in hours. They're not passed on to your children.
I don't think that's true
Now, to be
though.
fair, McKenna did try to address this. He speculated that psilocybin
It's
increased
not that
sexual
it
arousal
it's not
and
that it
sociability,
rewrites your DNA,
which
but it
could
rewrites
theoretically
how
lead to
parts of
more
your
mating
brain
and more
work,
offspring.
which
In this
that
hypothetical
that
scenario,
does transfer. We
individuals who
know
consumed
that
mushrooms would have reproduced
like
more often,
trauma, which is
gradually
a
tipping the genetic
mental
scales in
response
their
to
favor.
something,
But here's the issue.
passes
There's
down
no
in your
evidence this ever
cells.
happened. We have no data suggesting that regular mushroom users in ancient populations had more children. or that those children inherited any cognitive benefits from their parents' trips. Even if psilocybin boosted libido in the
So what the
moment,
fuck is the point of the
those
video?
behavioral effects are temporary, not biological upgrades that
I
natural
feel like
selection
every
can
point's
act
been
on.
like, yes, this has
line of
happened.
thinking
No, it
also
actually
brushes
hasn't.
against Lamarckian logic, the outdated idea that traits acquired during life can be passed down genetically, like suggesting if I lift weights and get strong, my kids will be born buff. It sounds
They won't be
intuitive,
born buff, but
evolution
they
just
will
doesn't
be
work that way.
they
So
will be
even if mushrooms
more.
did make some people more
You will be
socially aroused
healthier
and more mystical,
and more
it's all moot
prone
unless
to
those effects
a
somehow
better
translated to
physical
genetic
shape. Therefore, your
advantages.
kids will have
And so
a
far,
easier
there's no
time,
evidence
given they
did.
don't ruin their metabolism to start. It absolutely
The
does
hypothesis
transfer
is
over.
cool and all, but what do actual scientists think? As learned people of science, we should look at things skeptically and not take things at face value just because they tell a good story. Anthropologists, evolutionary biologists, and cognitive science have looked at the stone ape theory with deep skepticism. The
Well, of
problem isn't
course,
that
that's fair.
psychedelics have no effects. They clearly do. The problem is connecting those effects to large-scale evolutionary changes in brain structure and behavior over millions
But
of years.
everything is
There
what
currently
everything
no
can have an
fossil,
effect on you
genetic,
over
or
millions of
archaeological
years.
evidence supporting the idea that psilocybin had a direct impact on human evolution. No evidence of widespread psychedelic use that predates symbolic culture, and no way to test whether tripping apes gained selective advantages that would have translated into reproductive success. Cognitive neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Gallimore has noted that while psychedelics may influence thought and perception, there's no scientific mechanism linking these experiences to the slow, generational grind of evolution. Other experts like paleoanthropologist John Hawkes have called the theory speculative at best. While open to
That's what it is, yeah.
exploration, Hawkes and others emphasize that our understanding of human evolution needs to be built on observable evidence, fossils, behavior, genetics, not on some what-if scenario. And there's another issue, dose and frequency. For a substance to influence evolution, it would need to be consumed regularly by a large portion of population over generations, and lead to actual survival and reproductive advantages. That's a big ask for a mushroom that grows seasonally in specific conditions.
Sure, yeah, that's fair. I mean, again, it's millions of years, but that's fair.
Potentially
I
a
don't know.
reduction of a complex evolutionary process into a single aha or oh wow moment. She's also troubled by there being little evidence of such a pivotal moment, or of drug use at all so early in the archaeological record. My initial thoughts about the stoned ape hypothesis was, well, that's a cool idea, but how would we ever even prove it? Hypothetically, we could find dental calculus from this early on showing mushroom consumption or mushroom residue on tools.
Would be hard to
Even if
prove.
this evidence
There'd
did
really be
exist,
no
it would
way.
still be quite a stretch to correlate it to the gradual growth of our brains on multiple continents over 2 million years. Discussion of the stoned ape hypothesis is certainly interesting and makes some good podcast clips, but scientifically it just doesn't stack up. What I find far more interesting is the influence psychedelic substances had on more recent Stone Age cultures. We know for a fact that cultures around the world use various psychoactive substances for thousands of years, but just how far does this go back? Around 40,000 years ago, human cultures in Africa, Europe, and Asia began to make complex art. Much of these paintings consisted of dreamlike depictions of animals and symbols. Though we don't have any tangible evidence that these paintings may have been influenced by psychedelics, the possibility is there.
No, it could have just
Cave
been them
paintings
trying
7,000
to
years ago in
explore and
Algeria had a
understand
much clearer
like how
connection
to
these
convey an
substances.
image in a
The
picture.
so-called mushroom shaman depicts a human figure with mushroom-like shapes surrounding their head and limbs. Some interpret it as a spiritual figure engaged in a hallucinogenic ritual. Other paintings depict people hunting, dancing, and doing something else.
Oh my God!
Mushrooms may have very well had a large influence on the culture of this region, but shamanism was a much wider phenomenon than just North Africa. In fact, it was once the dominant religious practice throughout most of the world. This is very important for our understanding because the connection between shamanism and psychedelics is strong across many ancient traditions. Shamans often act as intermediaries between the physical and spiritual world, using trance-like states to access knowledge, perform healing, or guide communities. Psychedelics weren't just recreational, they were sacred tools. In many
Interesting.
cases, these substances were used in rites of passage, seasonal ceremonies, or healing rituals that reinforced group bonds and transmitted cultural knowledge. There is no doubt that psychedelics can be used to benefit cultures and societies, though I don't want to romanticize them. Psychedelic substances can vary widely in their effects and can be dangerous. Substances like datura used by the Aztecs are known to be extremely unpredictable. The substance itself is highly poisonous, and there are truly terrifying horror stories about bad trips.
Oh yeah,
Overall, psychedelics might have not had a large effect
I can
on
only
our early
imagine
evolution,
like how
but it could
bad
have
some of
helped
those
shape
fucking
human
trips could be.
culture, or contributed to visionary experiences that informed early spiritual systems. A man
Whoever
at
recorded
Fulton
that
of the
video was
psychedelic
horrible.
think tank Beckley Foundation says that the stoned ape theory is at very least a valid reminder that humans have always been drawn to mind-altering substances. The imagery that comes with the psychedelic experience is a theme that runs through ancient art, so I'm sure that the psychedelic experience and other techniques like dancing and music were used by early ancestors to enhance consciousness, which then facilitated spirituality, art, and medicine. So did psychedelics make us human? Probably not. There's no evidence for that, but did they shape the way that early humans thought, felt, and connected with one another? Very possibly. What McKenna got right is that consciousness is strange, and evolution isn't just about brute survival. It's also about creativity, community, and meaning. And in that sense, psychedelics may have played a subtle but significant role in how human culture unfolded. They could have helped inspire early mythology, facilitated emotional healing, or offered insights into the self and the cosmos. Psychedelics, in that context, may have acted as mirrors or magnifiers of the human spirit. Still, it's important to separate poetry from science. The stoned ape theory is a story, and a good one at that. But not every good story is true. The real story of human evolution is complex, multi-layered, and filled with mystery. It involves genetics, environment, diet, social behavior, tool use, and language. And yes, sometimes a little bit of shamanism. But if we're going to tell the story right, we need to anchor it in what we can test, trace, and understand. If you watch my
That literally
prior
looks
videos
like the
debunking
dock right down
modern
the street.
evolution theories, you might see a common theme.
I hate how like
Sensational
copy
ideas that
paste
tell a good
Florida
story
is.
prosper in the public's imagination. Though the more sensational idea, the more critical we should be of it. Terence McKenna seemed like a pretty cool dude. And I think his
Yeah, I think the
hypothesis
theory
does
is
a great job
completely.
inspiring
I
discourse
think it's
about
completely
evolution.
fair. A completely
It's always
fair
good to have a fresh
hypothesis.
take from a creative mind, so for that I applaud him. Though psychedelic mushrooms may have not been a driving force in our evolution, I bet some hominins were having a crazy time back in the day. Now that is a topic
Absolutely.
for a good movie. Maybe a comedy movie, I'm not sure. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, you are officially a part of the tribe. So subscribe, comment what you want to see next, and hit that like button as hard as a shroomed up Homo erectus throwing a hand axe at a hippopotamus. And if you want more, YouTube thinks you'll watch this video.
Oh, interesting, man. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Like that's it. Very cool theory, and I agree that I think it's. I would argue it's more plausible than not. And I would definitely say that there is a high chance that something to do with a level of substance usage, over the course of millennia absolutely contributed, because we say, well, learned experiences are not transferred. That's been disproven. That's just not true. Trauma is a learned experience, and it is passed down. That is how that's apparent everywhere in nature. That's how a brand new baby tiger knows not to go near a fucking rhino, because its parents knew not to go near a fucking rhino. Those two would never see each other usually in that, you know what I mean? Like a lion. Like a baby lion knows not to go to a fucking rhino by itself because its father wouldn't go to a rhino by itself, and that's a learned experience. That is what intuition is built on. There's a word I'm looking for that I can't think about it, but it has to do with this. It's like something versus something, not nature versus nurture, but it's something about your brain that is a developed trait. Like it's something about it that's genetic, right? Like it's not a reactive trait. Inherited, I think that might be the word. It doesn't sound like the word I'm looking for. I mean, it works. It's an inherited trait. It's stuff it's picked up from its lineage. So we know that that's true. We absolutely know that that's true. And there's been proof that trauma, very few human studies, this is like almost none, but it's mostly been like genetically similar species. It's been proved that trauma and limitations that are perceived upon living are passed on into offspring. You have trauma that like rats and mice have felt, that they've passed down through the cells into their offspring, and it's very likely, not proven, but very likely that that's possible with humans. Or I should say that the modern day version of mammals that we are, Homo sapiens specifically. So I definitely think it's possible. Like your mind altering substance can absolutely, over time, affect the brain and what you see. And because you have to understand, like, what you're see, evolution comes from what you're living through. So if I'm taking mind altering substances every day of my existence, I'm going to see life a little differently than somebody who doesn't, even if it is subjective, even if some of it may not be real. But my body, over time, over generations, is going to believe after a point that that's normal. That's just what I see. And I'm going to change in ways that adhere to what I am seeing and what I'm experiencing. So mental experiences absolutely shape evolution. I would dare say it's like the main factor. But whatever. But yeah, great video. B-roll could be a bit better, and I'm hoping that the voice isn't AI. The voice sounded human, but you never know nowadays. This was 10 months ago, so there's a good chance it wasn't, because the voices weren't as good 10 months ago. There's a good chance it wasn't, but yeah, no, great video, fantastic. I think I'm gonna call it there. I got some other stuff I want to look at, get onto chat. So let's go into the next one. I might have to fill my drink, but let's go.